Was this one of those things that, like, if we talk about it in terms of humans' patriarchal notions of male supremacy and women as property, that doesn't play.
Right.
That doesn't go over at all. But if we talk about it in the context of green men from a far off planet, then we can talk about it.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
I'm Captain James Kirk.
Spock.
Your move, Captain.
Jim Kirk of the Enterprise.
What's going on? I'm James Kirk. These people are my friend and my shipmate. Leave my crew alone.
Out of the question.
How about that?
James Kirk.
It fits like a glove, Captain.
Oh, the bonehead ideas.
Gentlemen, I'm Captain James Kirk. Get out of my chair. Get out of it now.
My greetings and felicitations, Captain. So good of you and your officers to, drop in. Absolutely smashing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Humanist Trek. It's a Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Allie Ashmead.
So, what we didn't decide is what we're going to talk about in the opening.
Well, I mean, this is the season opener, so what can we look forward to this season, and how do we think it's going to be different?
Great, love it.
I've only watched one episode, and I fucking died laughing the entire time. So I'm just like, high hopes.
Okay, so we're kicking off season 2, and we know there are some changes that take place in this season. For one, a new cast member has joined.
Yay!
Legacy cast member.
Is this? Can we say it?
Sure.
Chekhov.
It's Chekhov.
Chekhov's here.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool. The gang's all here now.
Yeah, and so we know that they have a little bit more money now. They've been renewed for a second season.
Are they going to get better uniforms that fit? I mean, because you know how like that. Kirk's shirt
velour
is
stuff
like,
they were using.
Well, that and Kirk's was literally almost wearing a crop top at some point because it was like it kept riding up.
Yeah,
I don't know.
What do you think? Because again, I haven't watched these in a million years, and I don't. Even if I scroll through the episode listings, let me do that. Hold on. Let me pull that up. Because I'm thinking like, what do I expect from this season? What do I remember?
Not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot. Like, there are some episode titles in this season that I couldn't tell you what they were about. Like, I remember, the Changeling, I remember this little floaty robot thing, but that's it. Like, I don't know anything else about it.
No. There
are some episodes I do remember. The Doomsday Machine is like a classic Star Trek episode. The Trouble with Tribbles is in this season.
Oh, yes. All right. That's episode 15. Of course, everybody remembers the Tribbles.
Yep. But then there's some like the Bread and Circuses. What the hell is that about?
What?
Patterns of Force? I don't even remember that episode title.
I don't think I paid attention to any of the titles back then.
Yeah.
I mean, we can guess that we're going to see Harry Mudd again.
Right.
Because of Mudd.
Mudd, yep. He's one of my liked characters too. Like I liked him as a character.
Really?
Until I sat down and watched this show and like to do this show and like, oh, he's just what a womanizing. Like, no.
Sex trafficker, basically.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's not okay. But yeah,
he's just selling real dolls. I don't see what the problem is.
I mean, and that's the thing is like we idolize. Well, I won't say we idolize Khan, but we did like idolize some of these characters. I really didn't think McCoy was that bad, but then as we're looking closer, Mudd was not cool.
Obsession. I don't remember anything about that.
Don't know.
Wolf in the Fold. I don't remember anything about that. Yeah, there's this is going to be a mixed bag, I think.
Yeah.
What I expect to see is more of a turn towards that humanist value stuff. Hopefully making decisions a bit more ethically. Like,
we'll see.
Yeah, I would hope that, what I think we're working towards and again, like I just don't remember, is, the Federation becoming more of a moral organization and the decisions that are being made by its crew reflect those values and that sort of thing. I feel like, I think hopefully we'll see that transformation.
But then I also wonder, like, how many, like, love interests of the week are we going to have?
Yeah, of course.
So.
Sure.
It's going to be kind of interesting.
Well, why don't we get into our episode this week as Allie and I battle to the death for Becca's love.
You're ahead by a few points, so.
It is Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 1, Amok Time.
Sir, contact with an object. It's moving toward us.
No visual contact yet.
Deflectors, full intensity.
Basuda. Yes, Captain. Anything on your scanners?
It's coming at light speed.
Collision course. Visual contact.
Anything, over?
All wavelengths dominated by ionization effects, sir.
All engines full stop.
After a quick Enterprise flyby, we open with Kirk climbing up a ladder. Why the fuck is he climbing this ladder?
Is that what they call a Jeffries tube?
Yes.
Yeah, he's coming out of a Jeffries tube and right into the hallway.
Right into the hallway next to the door to the elevator. Why was he not on the elevator? Why is he climbing through the ship?
Good point. I didn't realize that was next to the elevator.
Yeah, he climbs out of the ladder and the elevator doors open and it's McCoy.
Yep, there he is.
Anyway, McCoy stops Kirk and expresses concern about Spock. And he's acting strange, almost nervous. He hasn't eaten for 3 days. And Kirk tries to brush this off as one of Spock's contemplative phases.
Yeah.
But McCoy says that when he told Spock to come in for a routine checkup, Spock said, "You will cease to pry into my personal matters, doctor, or I shall certainly break your neck." And of course, Kirk's like, "Spock said that?" Cue Nurse Chapel, who is headed to Spock's room.
She's got a tray of food that she's carrying.
So she's got some Vulcan plomeek soup that she's going to deliver to Spock.
Yeah.
Because when you're under the weather, you want some
Like
soup.
chicken soup.
Sure. Now, I know we talked about this in season 1. I don't remember, or I didn't remember, this Chapel crushes on Spock stuff at all from any previous watches of this series.
I did not. And it's funny because I only learned about the Spock Chapel connection in Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, oh, how did I miss
It was
that?
there the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I was young. I mean, we were young. We didn't know.
Right. So McCoy says, "You never give up hoping, do you?"
Like, geez.
And Chapel's like, "Oh, I noticed he wasn't eating, so." And McCoy's like, "No need to explain. Go get that Vulcan D."
Oh, but the sad thing is,
she doesn't get the Vulcan D, Allie.
No. She gets the really bad side of Spock that no one's ever seen. So she goes in.
It's like Domestic Violence Day on Cops.
I know. Bad boys. Right. The minute she walks in, the next thing you know, she's running out and hiding behind the door. And he says something like, if he'd wanted anything from her, he would have asked for it. And he throws the tray and the soup. It hits the opposite wall outside the door. And she's just like devastated.
That soup splattered against the wall like Trump throwing a plate of ketchup.
Exactly. Ketchup everywhere. Ketchup for everyone. Kirk and McCoy are standing right there when Spock pops his head out. And then he's like, suddenly he's like, oh shit, I should probably take some time off.
So sobers you up real quick.
Yeah. So he's like, he demands that Captain Kirk grant him leave of absence to go to his home planet.
And as will recur throughout this episode, Kirk insists on knowing what's going on rather than just granting the request.
Yeah.
He's got to fucking pry into Spock's business.
Of course. Because they want to have something to give him shit about.
Yeah, right. And Spock responds, "I made my request. All I require from you is an answer." After the theme, Kirk is in Spock's quarters. And I don't know if you felt this or not, but Kirk prying into Spock's life like this, it just, I did not like it at all.
Yeah.
Okay, as a Disney leader for years, like there's got to be a respect of privacy.
Yeah.
Right? When your person comes to you and says, "Hey, I need to take a leave," that ain't none of my damn business.
Right.
Right? And I just, yes, I can approve it or no, I can't.
But he had to know.
Yeah. And I understand he might be doing that like, "Oh, I'm your friend, Spock. You can tell me what's wrong" thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just felt very uncharacteristic.
Or was it, "I'm your captain" or "I'm your friend"? Which one? And yeah. And if he, why couldn't he go to Vulcan?
Just let him go. Just say, "Request approved, Spock. Don't need to know what's going on. But you let me know if you need anything else. Okay, buddy?" Like that's how as a leader I would have handled that.
For sure. But Captain's like, what the heck's up with you, Spock? And he's in his quarters and Spock. Okay, this scene kind of irritated me, and I'll tell you why in a second. So Spock says that it is undignified for a woman to play servant to a man that is not hers. Excuse me?
A couple of things here.
Okay, so first, in animal terms, okay, we know what's wrong with Spock, right? He's horny. I mean, he's in heat, basically, in animal terms. And I didn't appreciate that in what he just said. He was basically blaming Nurse Chapel for coming in there for his behavior, but he's the one that's got the problem with his being in heat, and rather than admitting I'm going through this thing, it's her problem, it's her fault.
Right.
Did not like that at all.
There were a couple of things that I took out of that. I read that as like Spock knows that Chapel is hot for him, right?
Yeah.
He knows. And it also drops that breadcrumb of the episode, the first breadcrumb of the episode, right? Which is, if Spock is a man who is not hers, who does Spock belong to?
Oh, I didn't even think about it that way.
So Kirk's like, Spock, you never take leave. In fact, you refuse every time Bones and I try to force you to go.
Right.
What the hell's going on? And Spock's like, I have enough PTO time, man. Just let me go.
Right. Don't ask any questions. I don't have to tell you.
But Kirk just keeps prying. He's like, if there's a problem, Spock, an illness in the family or, something.
Right.
But it's not that. And Kirk's like, well, we're headed to Altair 6. There's a decent place to take your leave. And as he goes to leave, Spock has another outburst. And
he cannot control himself.
He stands up and he's holding a knife behind his back.
Oh, I remember that.
Why does he have a knife?
Because
I get that he's raging out.
He's totally raging. I guess he has no control over anything he picks up or, it's weird.
So he's got this knife behind his back and he stands up and
I'm going to cut you.
His hand is like shaking.
I'm going to cut you, Captain.
Yeah. And like Kirk keeps trying to pry a couple more times, but ultimately he calls up to the bridge and says, change course to Vulcan. Spock thanks him and Kirk says, I suppose most of us overlook the fact that even Vulcans aren't indestructible. And after Kirk's gone, Spock sort of looks at it and steadies his hand because it's still shaking. And he says, no, we're not.
Aww.
So there's some shit going on with Spock.
Poor Spock.
Poor Spock. Up on the bridge, Uhura gets a voicemail from Starfleet. Priority and urgent. And we learn that they are headed to Altair 6 to be part of the inauguration of the new president. But safety concerns about rednecks in MAGA hats storming the Capitol have caused them to bump up the inauguration by 7 days.
Yeah, we don't want another January 6th in space. So
the Enterprise is ordered to change course to get there on time. There's a wonderful camera move that happens in this scene.
Yeah.
That during the voicemail that I really liked. It starts up close on Kirk with Uhura in the background. And then it kind of turns and pulls back so that Spock appears in foreground and Kirk in background.
Nice. Look at them. They've evolved.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was a nice camera move. And it very well telegraphed like the question we were all thinking as they're talking about you have to change course and go to this Altair 6. But what about Spock?
Right.
We're introduced to a new character, a young mop-top lad from Russia. It's Pavel Chekhov.
Yay, Ensign Chekhov.
I am sorry. I was momentarily delayed.
And I love the camaraderie between Sulu and Chekhov already at the helm it's great. It doesn't even have, they don't even have to work that hard to have that chemistry. So I love it. So they're going to change course and he tells the new Ensign Chekhov that they're going to Vulcan. And he goes up to Spock and he's like, sorry, dude, sailor's luck, I guess, you know? But he's like, he promises, you'll get your leave as soon as we're finished. And Spock's like, I understand, but he can tell he's like really about to explode.
Later, Kirk is laying in bed, but he's awake, clearly contemplating. And suddenly he sits up like he's got an idea, a moment. So he calls up Chekhov and he asks, let's say we increase speed to maximum warp and swing by Vulcan and drop Spock off. How late would that put us to Biden's thing? And Chekhov's like, I don't know what you're talking about. We're on course to Vulcan, just as Mr. Spock ordered. So Kirk goes to the bridge and asks Spock, like, we need to talk.
Yeah.
Follow me, please.
Mm-hmm.
So they get in the elevator and Kirk corners Spock about the course change.
So did you see, though? So when he goes to the bridge to get Spock, I felt like Kirk was like a teacher and Spock was a naughty child because he stood at the turbo lift with his hands on his hip and they did that one shot where focus on Spock with Kirk blurred in the background and he's got his hands on his hips like, Spock, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, it's just like he was in trouble. And then they kept playing this music, this weird music. I think it was like bass string, like a bass. And every time we focus on Spock, it's like bong, 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 bong. So it was funny. So they go into the turbo lift.
Kirk corners Spock about the course change, but Spock's like, "Oh, I take your word for it. I probably did that, but I don't remember it." And that reminds me of me so often. Anytime I ever get called in the office for anything, I always going, "Shit, did I do something or did I forget to do something?" Because it's probably I forgot. You asked me to do something and I didn't do it.
And then he's like, I probably did it. He's like, can you just lock me in my quarters? I don't wish to be seen.
Yeah.
And I'll put a pin in that because I'll come back to this later.
Well, and Kirk is still prying. Like, tell me what's going on, Spock. Yeah. So Kirk orders him to sickbay for a complete exam. And as Spock leaves the turbo lift and wanders down the hall, he looks lost. Like he's not sure where he is or who he is, or kind of a dreamlike state.
Yeah.
And he wanders into sickbay and McCoy's like, "Oh, good, we're ready for you." And I love this line.
Staged.
This is the best line of Star Trek. Spock says, "Well, I was ordered to report to sickbay, and now that I have, I think I'm going home."
Trying to get out of it. I'm like,
"Screw you guys, I'm going home."
But McCoy's like, he's got this weird contraption all set up for him, like one of those gravity bed thingies.
Yeah.
So they've been waiting for him, and he gets on the table, and then he starts tapping his finger on the side.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's some kind of like a mind thing to stay focused,
like
or something.
Or like a tick, like a nervous something. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a real fun cutaway to the bridge here that was unexpected, but also really warmed my heart to see. This relationship you talked about, like Chekhov and Sulu, it starts right here, out of the gate. Day one. So they're up bullshitting on the bridge at their stations, and Sulu's like, "Well, what do you make of all this? First, we're going to Altair, and then to Vulcan, and then Altair, and then to Vulcan, and then..."
Chekhov is like, "I'm going to get space sick."
Yeah. So I just love that their first on-screen moment together was one of these fun scenes that they kind of become known for.
Yeah.
Like with their relationship.
And the writing and the banter has gotten better.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Cut to Kirk's quarters where McCoy bursts in and he's like, "We got to get Spock to Vulcan or he'll die."
He'll die, Jim. I'm like, that escalated quickly.
Continuing their discussion, McCoy explains that they have a week, 8 days at best, to get Spock to Vulcan or he'll die. And Kirk's like, "Wait, what?" But McCoy doesn't have an explanation.
We talked about him being a doctor. Okay.
Yes.
He's like, 8 days. Okay, why 8 days? And the doctor's like, I don't know. And Kirk is like, "Well,
aren't you a doctor?
Yeah. Why don't you know? Aren't you the doctor?" I was
so good.
I was cracking up. I was yelling.
Just talked about that.
I know. I was yelling at the TV. I'm like, "See?" I'm like, okay.
McCoy says Spock is experiencing something like massive amounts of adrenaline being pumped into the body. But he can't detect anything. So he's just kind of taken Spock's word about what's happening. And that if it isn't stopped, it'll kill him. So Spock knows what's happening, but won't tell anybody.
This is a McCoyism. Okay, now that we know we're probably going to do this is totally McCoyism. So he's like, he suspects that Spock knows exactly what's wrong with him, but he's like, he's as tight-lipped as an Aldebaran shell mouth. Whatever the fuck
that is. Yeah.
I was like, that's typical McCoy.
Yeah. Well, that's still not good enough for Kirk, so he's got to pry some more. Cut to Spock watching porn on his computer screen.
Oh my God, I wrote the same thing!
As the doorbell rings, Spock mashes Alt F4 and yanks his pants back up.
And he puts his head down. And they do show the picture of the girl, but she's a child.
Yes.
And she looks mad.
Which makes my porn joke really out of color. But
I know, but I wrote it too. I'm like, oh, I don't feel right about this.
No.
He was totally like he'd been caught. But the girl's picture she looked pissed.
Mm-hmm.
But like she was a little girl, I guess, when they were kids.
Yeah.
And she looked pissed.
Kirk demands to know what's going on again still, and he promises to keep it confidential. And so finally Spock relents, and we learn all about the Ponfar mating ritual. Well, howdy, class. Today we're going to dive into the strange and fascinating world of the Vulcan Ponfar. Now listen up, because it's going to get interesting. Why, Mr. Spock here looks mighty emotional. What's wrong, Mr. Spock?
I do not wish to be seen. Cannot. No Vulcan could explain further.
Uh-oh. It looks like our Vulcan friend is experiencing Ponfar. You see, Vulcans are a logical bunch, but they also got some serious emotions hidden deep inside. And once every 7 years, during the Ponfar, a Vulcan gets all hot and bothered.
Oh my.
And their emotions come to the surface in a big way.
I should like to request a leave of absence on my home planet.
When Vulcan children are 7 years old, their future mate is chosen by their parents. And when Ponfar pops up, they are both compelled to return to their home planet Vulcan to marry and fornicate. Once they've mated, Vulcans form a deep bond with their mate. It's like they've become soulmates or something. This bond helps them regain their emotional balance and return to their logical selves. There. Feeling better, Mr. Spock?
Indeed. Thank you, Captain.
So there you have it, class. The Vulcan Ponfar may be mysterious, but it's an important part of their culture and biology. It's a unique mix of emotions and logic that makes it truly one of a kind. All right, class, that's all for today's lesson on the Vulcan Ponfar. Remember, always approach different cultures and their traditions with respect and understanding. Class dismissed.
I love it. That's awesome.
Very few non-Vulcans know about it, and even Vulcans don't speak about it amongst themselves. And Kirk's like, oh, it's just fucking Spock. Nothing to be embarrassed about.
Right.
Why, just last week, this green woman and I... but Spock's like, it's different for Vulcans, Jim. Haven't you ever wondered how Vulcans choose their mates?
Mm-hmm.
And Kirk says, and this is another great line, he says, I guess the rest of us just assume that it's done quite logically. But it's actually quite the opposite. He says it's shielded in ritual and customs shrouded in antiquity. So this biological urge basically rips their logic away and drives them mad until they return to Vulcan and lay that pipe. He describes this primal drive to return home to mate as like salmon on Earth, returning to the stream where they were born in order to spawn or die trying. Kirk, reinforcing his promise of confidentiality, tells Spock that I didn't hear a word, and I will get you to Vulcan somehow. So Kirk calls up Uhura to get Admiral Comac at Starfleet Command on the phone. And still playing up their fast friendship and playful banter, Chekhov says, Sulu, you don't think.
He's like, yeah, possibly, but just be ready in case.
Yeah, plot a course to Vulcan just in case.
Yeah.
Vulcan alter, Vulcan, Vulcan alter. Cut to Spock in his quarters playing his lyre when Uhura calls down, but he's in no mood and he storms over and smashes the computer monitor to a pulp.
I know. He's like, would you just let me alone? I'm like, okay.
All right.
Okay.
It's like my puberty teenager.
It's exactly what it is. It's like a rush of hormones that you can't control. Like girls, I was going to bring this up later, but like the whole thing about when he said, I don't want to be seen. Like if you're ever a teenager, whether you're a girl or boy, like if you're a girl, you're going through having your period for the first time or something. And you just want to like go somewhere and hide.
Yep.
And curl up in a fetal position. And I think this is what, us girls have gone through.
Spock's just like, leave me the fuck alone.
Yes, I just want to eat ice cream and lay in my bed. I get it, Spock. We get it.
Down in sickbay, Kirk is pleading with Admiral Comac to divert to Vulcan. And Kirk loses this round, though, largely because he won't break his promise to Spock and explain to the Admiral what's going on. So the Admiral's like, listen, this Altair 6 thing is no ordinary matter. These people are just putting themselves back together after 4 long years of being run by a TV game show host clown. And it's really important that we're there for this new leadership. So it's a no from the Admiral, but Kirk spent this whole episode not taking no from anybody.
Yeah.
Why break that now? Kirk argues that they would be one of 3 starships, a good show, but not necessary. The others can handle it. Of course, McCoy is like, if you go against orders, they'll bust your balls. But Kirk's like, Leonard, my dear, dear friend has blue balls of the worst kind. My balls are certainly worth his.
Right.
During this exchange, there's a cutaway to Nurse Chapel, who is in the other room listening.
Yeah. I forgot about her. Yes,
yeah. Mm-hmm. And we know she's got the hots for him. So Kirk calls up the bridge and Chekhov hands Sulu $1 and he's like, you win. Here we go again.
He had already plotted a course to Vulcan in anticipation of them changing again.
And as they're talking, Nurse Chapel rushes out of sickbay and goes to Spock's quarters. It seems like Spock is sleeping and Chapel has gone in without his permission. Apparently Spock's got an open door policy. Get it, girl.
I mean, they got something. They got some fire going. But yeah.
She stands at the head of the bed, really struggling about whether or not she should touch him.
Yep.
She reaches out a couple of times and ultimately she decides to leave. And she's walking away and Spock says, Miss Chapel.
Christine. Call me Christine.
Yeah. There's a very flirtatious scene between them.
Yeah.
Spock tells her about a startling dream he had, that she was trying to tell him something, but he couldn't hear her. And then he says, it would be illogical for us to protest against our natures, don't you think?
What the hell does that mean? Because
bend over, bitch. I'm about to lay that pipe.
Oh my God. But what was he going to do? That was illogical of him to say that. Because he was, I don't know.
Hang on. I just had a really great mashup idea. 50 Shades of Grey. But it's Spock,
right,
and Chapel.
Oh my God!
50 Shades of Spock. There you go.
Oh my goodness!
I would like at least, I don't know, 3% royalties on that if you make it. 50 Shades of Spock. There you go.
Grabbing my upper thighs, he forces my legs apart. I groan loudly, feeling his tongue circling my clitoris. Oh my.
Spock wipes a tear from Chapel's cheek and tells her that her face is wet. What? You know what crying is.
I know.
Your face is wet. What a stupid line.
Oh my God.
And Chapel's like, I came here to tell you we're going to Vulcan after all. And she suggestively drops formalities by telling Spock, my name is Christine, right? Call me Christine. And he's like, I know, Christine. Would you make me some of that plomeek soup? And she loves this. She's all happy face.
Like, oh, yes, I'd love to.
Yeah, rushes right off to the kitchen to make her man some food.
Those two, I tell you.
Now, do you think she's replicating this soup? Or is she making it from, is there a kitchen? Because we know Pike likes to cook in Strange New Worlds. So there's some precedent for there being kitchens on board.
Right. So we know, though, too, because we've been in the dining hall and they've behind this thing. Or they tell the computer what they want and it gives it to them. But we don't know if it's a replicator or we don't know what it is.
It's because they call it like a food dispenser sometimes. So that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I doubt she's making it, but I mean.
These are the questions.
I know. Yeah. These are things we think about. Yeah.
The Enterprise arrives at Vulcan and KSM are in the elevator heading to the bridge. And Spock's like, Captain, there is a kind of insanity that happens to us at this time that you'll find it quite distasteful. And Kirk's like, well, you put up with all my fucking crazy.
Pretty much is exactly what he said.
Yeah. What are friends for, Spock?
Yeah. Oh, and then he's like, he's asking them to be down and stand with him, asking Kirk, and which is this kind of like to be his best man in a way.
Yeah.
He reluctantly side-eyed asked McCoy as well. And I'm like, good. You should go, but he shouldn't be wanted. You know what I mean?
Right. As they arrive on the bridge, Uhura has Vulcan Space Central on the phone. Kirk requests permission to assume standard orbit, which they grant and welcome them to Vulcan. And then the Vulcan asks if Spock is there. And as the view screen starts to click on, Nurse Chapel arrives on the bridge too.
Just in time.
Gotta have her there. Yeah. And on the view screen appears T'Pring. They have a famous back and forth, especially now.
Mm-hmm.
T'Pring, parted from me and never parted, never and always touching and touched. We meet at the appointed place.
Spock, parted from me and never parted, never and always touching and touched. I await you.
Uhura's like, whoa, Spock, who's the hottie?
Yeah. Oh, that's my wife, T'Pring. And of course, Nurse Chapel is like,
what? A wife?
Yeah. What?
Yeah. Yeah. This is my wife, which none of you have heard about until just this very moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Typical Vulcan. Well, the sets have gotten better.
Yeah. This foam rock playset.
Much better, though.
It's against sort of a reddish sky. And then we get some really great establishing shots, like wide shots of like, here's what Vulcan looks like.
Red
like
planet
some architecture
looking.
And stuff. Yeah, those were really great. And then the area where the ceremony takes place is visually interesting.
Yeah.
It's like an area circled by these like stone pillars.
Like Stonehenge light on in space.
Yeah. And Spock explains this is the old family stomping grounds. Been in the family more than 2,000 Earth years. This is the place of their Kunut Khalifi, which...
Very good.
Thanks. Which Kirk explains to McCoy translates to something like marriage or challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And we learn that in the past, Vulcans killed to win their mates.
Which is so primitive.
Yeah.
Everything else about them is logical and structured and... but then this one thing, of course, they're going to be primitive about that.
Yep. Kirk and McCoy are talking about how fucking hot it is on Vulcan. When Spock strikes a gong and announces that he can hear the wedding party arriving. And Kirk's like, wedding party? I thought you said you were married. Apparently, it is Vulcan tradition to arrange your child's marriage when they're 7 years old.
I think I know. Well, obviously, this Ponfar thing happens every 7 years. So
right?
you would, I guess you'd want to be matched up with somebody who's going to go through it at the same time. Is that why they do it?
I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't get
I don't know. But as kids, they do some like mind meld finger play. And I'm sorry, I won't do that when you have a drink in your mouth.
Mind meld finger play? Oh my God.
Finger play. And enter each other's thoughts, which locks their minds together so that when Ponfar hits, they're both drawn back together.
Mm-hmm.
A jingling sound gets louder, and Spock strikes the gong again. Two men enter, shaking these metal frame things.
With these damn bells on it. And I was like, this is getting so annoying. It's like a big-ass tambourine, except with bells.
They're followed by an old woman being carried in a chair, and Kirk's like, Bones, do you know who that is? That's T'Pau, the only person ever to turn down a seat on the Federation Council.
Yeah, he's a bit starstruck, but she's a well-known Vulcan diplomat, and she is officiating the wedding.
And they're very surprised that Spock is important enough to rate getting her to be their wedding officiant.
Right.
Like, they make this out to be the Pope officiating like some layperson's wedding in the Catholic Church. Speaking of which, if you'd like to have a Star Trek themed wedding and you need an officiant, don't forget I am a humanist celebrant and I can legally marry you, and I have Star Trek costumes that I can wear at your wedding.
Yes! Oh my God.
Just saying, shoot me an email.
Yeah.
I would love to do some Star Trek themed weddings.
That would be awesome.
Hell yeah. Maybe that'll be my niche as a wedding officiant.
Yeah.
I'll do Star Trek weddings. After T'Pau comes T'Pring, followed by this beefcake-looking Vulcan man, and then a couple of other Vulcan guys carrying various props. Again, like, whose line?
Right.
T'Pring gives the Vulcan salute, and I knew right away that I got this question right this week. that she had to have her fingers glued together because she couldn't do the thing.
Yep.
Anyway, Spock approaches her and she fingers his face a bit and then asks if their ceremonies are for outsiders. But Spock is like, these are my friends. They're not outsiders, and I have that right.
Mm-hmm.
T'Pau gestures, and Kirk and McCoy approach and introduce themselves. T'Pau explains, what they're about to witness is an ancient tradition going back to the beginning. This is our way.
This is the way. Love that.
She points toward the gong and says, Khalifa. So Spock goes to hit the gong.
And homegirl, T'Pring, she holds up her hand and she yells, Khalifi.
Yeah.
Which means, hold up, wait a minute. I haven't seen you in how long?
Uh-huh.
And so I guess this gesture invokes the Khalifi, which means she's asking Spock to fight for her.
Yeah.
So
it's the challenge. Kirk and McCoy play the part of the audience here, the outsiders who have to have somebody interpret for what the hell's happening. And which is T'Pau of all people who explains it. She explains that T'Pring has chosen to have Spock fight. And again, like this, just the whole thing just hit me wrong. And I know we'll talk about it later. So she asks T'Pring if she is prepared to become the property of the victor.
That was the word that grated on my nerves. The property.
Yeah. So here's how it all works. T'Pring chooses her challenger to fight Spock and becomes the property of the winner.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk tries to talk to Spock, but he's basically so deep in his condition that he couldn't have a conversation if he wanted to.
Right. He's deep into the plaque tau, which is some kind of trance type thing. Blood fever is what they call it.
T'Pring, who had apparently planned on choosing Stonn, the beefcake guy, as her champion, instead walks past him and chooses Kirk. And Stonn's pissed.
Tim's like, wait a minute. I thought we agreed that I was going to fight for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, so she's changing it up. She's got some, I like it.
Kirk has the option to say no because he's not Vulcan, so he's not bound by their laws or whatever. And even Spock argues, like, he doesn't know our ways. His blood doesn't burn. I can't fight him. He's my friend. And if Kirk declines, T'Pring will have to choose another champion, likely Beefcake
Stonn,
who would probably snap Spock in half.
Right.
T'Pau questions Spock's Vulcanness here. She's like, yeah, so people are saying your Vulcan blood is thin, Spock. Are you Vulcan or human?
Are you Vulcan or not? Are you Vulcan enough?
And Spock's like, I'm pretty sure that's why I'm on this show, is to figure that out. But right now, my dick is so hard.
I know, right?
McCoy pleads with Kirk not to fight Spock. Kirk thinks he might be able to just knock Spock out without actually hurting him.
Right, because I feel like Spock's not going to stand up against Stonn in the state that he's in. So they're just trying to, like, again, like, fix it, you know?
There's a bunch of fast cuts all around to different reaction shots that, and with the music that they put in here, it really kind of builds up that suspense. So T'Pau finally presses Kirk for a decision, and he accepts. He's gonna fight his friend. Each fighter is presented with a weapon, which is sort of like a axe blade on one end of a real long stick with a counterweight on the other end. And then they all have their weapons. And then she's like, cool, well, just so you know, this is a fight to the death.
And he's like, what?
Wait, what?
What have I done?
Kirk's like, I didn't agree to fight to the death, but T'Pau's like, sorry, no backsies.
Star Trek fight!
Right with the very first swing, Spock rips Kirk's shirt, which reveals a nice slice across his chest. We got to get some skin.
That's where his shirt always tore in the first season. It was always across the...
Got to get those pecs.
Right across his titties. I mean, what the fuck?
But there's also a cut.
Oh,
and it's kind of bleeding a little bit. You can see the blood. They fight back and forth a bit until finally Kirk is on his back on the ground and Spock is going in for the kill.
And McCoy's like, no.
And then T'Pau calls for a timeout.
Yeah. Like, what the hell?
Like, was there a timer? Was she counting down? Like, was there a specific...
This was a round.
It was supposed to be to the death, though. And if
Like, even, I guess, boxing matches to the death have rounds? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know.
McCoy's not impressed at all, though. Vulcans are supposed to be logical, civilized people. But he tells her that Kirk isn't used to this heat and thin atmosphere. But he could give Kirk a hypo spray of something that will help even out the odds. And I don't know if you were surprised by this, but T'Pau allows it.
Me too. I was very shocked that she agreed, since they're such staunch, tradition and whatever. She allowed it.
Like, so you're going to go give your guy some performance-enhancing drugs?
Right.
And I'm going to approve that.
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
Yep.
So McCoy goes to Kirk, who is really laboring to breathe now.
They're like in the high altitude of the Colorado mountains.
Yeah, it's hour 2 of hiking with Sarah and Allie.
Yes. We know what you feel like.
Uh-huh. And Kirk's laboring to breathe and tells him, like, dude, you're going to have to kill Spock. And explains he's going to administer this performance-enhancing drug that will help him breathe. T'Pau calls for the next stage of the fight, the Anwoon. And the bells ring again, and each are given these long straps with like weights and tassels on the ends.
Yeah, like what do you call those things that you would throw and the weights would?
Is it like a bolo?
Is that what it is? A bolo? Maybe it is.
I don't know.
Anyone?
Anyway,
Bueller. But yeah, it's one of those weapons.
And Kirk's face in this shot it was so good. He holds this strap and he sort of looks around like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this?
You're supposed to choke him to death. Asphyxiate, as they say, since we're in the 50 Shades of Spock.
Uh-huh. Spock's already got his swinging, though, and it wraps around Kirk's legs like Indiana Jones' whip on a tree branch. And down goes Kirk. Again, they wrestle around a bit until finally Spock has his strap around Kirk's neck and is sort of like dragging him over to this fire pit looking thing that's full of like glowing orange and yellow rocks.
Fake rocks.
Yeah.
And it looked like he had him by the back of the neck, like not like the whole windpipe.
Right.
Like the half of the windpipe. I'm like, but somehow he manages to strangle him to death like that. Like just with it being around the back of his neck.
Yeah, Kirk's body collapses. And the contest is over. McCoy goes to Kirk and pronounces him dead. And T'Pau says, I grieve with thee. Who was this actor?
She was an Austrian woman.
Celia Lovsky?
Was she Austrian or something? She was like not quite.
Yeah, Austrian-American actress. Yeah, she had a very thick accent.
I liked her. I mean, she was one of those actresses that has gravitas or whatever they call it when she's on.
Well, her first listed in her filmography is like 1930s.
Yeah.
So she has quite a long career. There's all kinds of. Let's see what I know. There's a lot of shows I've never heard of. Oh, okay. Have Gun Will Travel, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Twilight Zone, Greatest Story Ever Told. Oh, she was in The Flying Nun.
Huh.
Sister Olaf. I'll be damned.
Yeah, she's got that something that commands a scene.
McCoy tells Spock he's in command now, and he orders, and Spock tells him to beam up, says, I'll follow you up shortly. And they are to plot a course to the nearest starbase where Spock will turn himself in for killing the captain.
So I guess killing his captain kind of killed the boner.
Yeah. McCoy walks off camera and we hear the transporter sound as Spock approaches to Pring. He asks why she challenged and why she chose Kirk.
She's conniving in a way.
Well, her reasoning, even Spock notes, is flawlessly logical.
Of course, she's a woman and a Vulcan.
So her explanation is, first, Spock has become kind of a rock star among Vulcans, and she just doesn't want that life. Second, there's Stonn, who's been plowing her field in Spock's absence, and she wanted to be with him.
Right.
So this challenge was the only legal way out of their arranged marriage, and she explains that if Kirk had won, he wouldn't want her, and so then she would have Stonn. If Spock had won, he would have freed her because she had dared to challenge him, and then she would have Stonn. But if Spock won and didn't free her, then it would basically just go back to normal. Spock is off gallivanting across the galaxy.
And she'd still have Stonn.
And she'd still have Stonn.
On the side. Whether it's the main course or on the side, she still got him.
I'm going to have him either way.
Right. So I thought she was like completely, it's pretty brilliant.
It is.
Good for her. Good for fucking her for looking out for her.
And this parting blow from Spock to Stonn, he tells Stonn, well, she's yours now. That may not turn out to be as good a thing as you think.
Yeah.
Having, he says, is not so pleasing a thing after all as wanting. It's not logical, but is often true.
So
burn.
I know, right? He's like, you wanted her?
You
got
have
her.
Yep. Spock radios the Enterprise, and before he beams out, he approaches T'Pau, salutes her, and says, live long and prosper. But when she returns the gesture, he says, I shall do neither. I have killed my captain and my friend.
Yeah. That's so sweet. We knew we had that relationship, but then this is like really showing how much it means to both of them.
Up in sickbay, Spock tells McCoy and Chapel that he'll be resigning effective immediately, and McCoy keeps trying to interrupt to talk, but Spock keeps going, asking him to make final arrangements. McCoy tries to interrupt again, but Spock says, there's no excuse for the crime I committed. I'm guilty, and I plan to offer no defense. And I'll order Scotty to take command. And as he's saying this, Kirk comes up behind him in the doorway and says, don't you think you ought to check with me first?
I love it because you'll see Spock be for a split second so out of character.
Drops it all.
He is so happy to see Kirk alive. And then he calls him, he's like, Jim. And he grabs him and smiles. And then then he recovers.
It reminded me of that moment in The City on the Edge of Forever when McCoy comes out and
all three of them they embraced each other,
right.
Like, I love you guys, and like, what?
But then Spock notices everybody looking at him.
He's like, oh shit.
Shit. Yep. Yeah. Back to my Vulcan self. Spock says he's pleased to see Kirk, but he's super confused because he's very much alive and uninjured. And it turns out McCoy slipped him a Mickey that just simulated death.
Yep.
I believe this gets repeated in The Next Generation. And
with the Vulcans, or
no, I feel like this is the one. It's like everybody's least favorite episode of all time ever. The one where Tasha Yar has to fight Code of Honor. It's this planet that's just all like black dudes. And
they wanted her as their woman.
Yeah,
okay, I remember.
Yeah, the leader wanted her, and so she had to fight very similarly. Had to fight like.
And then she faked her death, basically, get away from these fuckers.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that is a direct, and it's interesting going back and doing this, and because I'm seeing these now. I heard someone recently describe the first season of The Next Generation as the fourth season of the original series, and I'm really seeing that more and more now.
Yeah,
like
the Naked Now,
exactly.
There was another one.
There were several storylines that they basically whole cloth repeated. And I didn't realize this was one of them until like just this moment.
I love this. I love discovering this stuff.
McCoy asks Chapel to leave, and she seems a little pissed and kind of storms off in a huff. Do you think McCoy's decision to have Chapel step out was his like being thoughtful and considering her feelings about Spock?
No.
Because
no.
Because the next part of this conversation, McCoy asks, what happened after you after we left the cute Vulcan girl?
You know what? Okay, maybe.
What happened, Spock?
Well, no, I think too they're about to do some locker room talk.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't think it had anything to do with her feelings. He's like, "Fuck your feelings." Spock, you need to kiss and tell.
Right,
so,
right. McCoy's like, you can grab him by the pussy.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
They like it.
When you're famous, they let you.
Yeah, they let you do that.
Locker room talk.
Yeah.
He says, Spock explains that as soon as he believed he had killed Kirk and won the challenge, he found that he was no longer interested in T'Pring at all. It's too bad Christine wasn't able to hear that.
Yeah.
But
then they can keep the tension going forever.
Yeah. Although, not only is he no longer interested in T'Pring, He's no longer interested in fucking at all now.
Oh, he's like, fuck these women, man. But I mean, poor Christine, she's right there.
Right.
She's like willing to do whatever. So.
Mm-hmm. She's knelt in the corner with her head down, waiting for Master Spock to return.
I haven't read the book. Oh my God. I need to read the book.
You gotta read them. It's they're so
awful.
It's just, they're
all.
awful.
Have them?
I think we got rid of them. I'm almost positive we got rid of them. We'll look around.
I'll look and see if I have them.
The best, though, is to go on the YouTube and type in Gilbert Gottfried reads 50 Shades of Grey.
But when he hits my clitoris, I cry out loudly. Oh, please, I groan. Quiet, he orders, not taking his eyes off mine. He scrunches my panties in his hand, holds them up to his nose, and inhales deeply.
He's yelling the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Done. That's what I'm
so
doing.
good.
That's what I'm doing this evening.
The button on the episode, Uhura receives a call from Starfleet Command approving T'Pau's request for the Enterprise to divert to Vulcan.
Mhm.
Was that part of the story? Did we know that T'Pau had made a request on Spock's behalf?
No. I don't know how she would have known they were going to be in trouble.
Right.
So it was like she gave her approval that, okay, they have an excuse. This is your doctor's note for your teacher.
Right.
You're going to be late. I don't know. I thought that was weird, and I thought, hey, cool, she did that.
Like, show me Spock reaching out to her earlier in the episode at some point, and then I would have believed that.
Yeah.
But we got no indication that anyone had reached out to her.
Good point. I just thought, cool, she did that, but I didn't think, it didn't dawn on me to ask, why did she do that?
Anyway, plot a course to Altair 6, finally, and KSM have a chair chat, but in sickbay this time. Not on the bridge. McCoy just can't wait to nail Spock to the wall about that emotional outburst at seeing Jim.
Of course.
But Spock says that was simply his quite logical relief that Starfleet had not lost a highly proficient captain. And McCoy's like, oh, yes, your reaction was very, very logical. Yes, of course. And as Kirk and Spock walk towards the door to leave sickbay, McCoy mutters, in a pig's eye. The audience laughs and we all go to credits.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'm happy the affair is over.
Me too.
A most annoying, emotional episode.
Yeah, but you know, I learned something today.
When dreams become more important than reality, you give up travel, building, creating.
One jealous god, if all this makes a god.
By sparing your helpless enemy, who surely would have destroyed you, you demonstrated the advanced trait of mercy.
Frankly, I was rather dismayed by your use of the term half-breed. You must admit, it is an unsophisticated expression.
You know, I mentioned like little girls from the age of like 10, 11, 12, they start their period, the terrible time in their lives. And it, depending on what era you grew up in, you don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I feel like they kind of gave, I thought this was kind of cool that they gave Spock a man who no man typically understands what women go through. They make fun of us during that time. We're hormonal, we're PMS, we're this or that. But they gave this to Spock.
Yeah.
And it's such a fucking intense way. Like, you only get it you don't get periods. You don't, but every 7 years, you're going to lose your fucking mind.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, okay, thank you for making people understand what we go through. I mean, I don't know if that was not really a theme, but I really like the fact that they didn't do that to the woman in the episode. They did it to the man.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Another thing I thought about it, like this Vulcan cultural thing was maybe supposed to make us reflect on things like arranged marriages.
Yeah.
Marriages arranged by parents for children who are children.
Yeah.
Women, wives as property of men.
Yeah.
We talked about that. You know, is this one of those things that, like, if we talk about it in terms of humans' patriarchal notions of male supremacy and women as property, that doesn't play.
Right.
That doesn't go over at all. But if we talk about it in the context of green men from a far off planet, then we can talk about it.
Yeah, because I think people don't get as sensitive when they see something else instead of looking at in a mirror.
Mhm.
Oh, they don't like that. So yeah, good point. Good point.
Two big things really jumped out at me. Like, first, tradition for tradition's sake is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, traditions can be very important and meaningful, but if they're outdated or not useful anymore, like, then there's no good reason to carry on doing a thing just because we've always done it.
Yeah.
And this one is due to be dumped. This is a stupid tradition. And the second part of this is we have got to get over our shit and learn to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
There's no good reason why T'Pring shouldn't be able to simply say, I don't want to be with Spock and I want to be with Stonn.
Tradition. I mean, yeah, like you said.
Right. And that should be the end of it. But for this supposedly advanced logical culture, they're just as bad as humans when it comes to talking about sex.
Oh, yeah. And about body changes.
Yeah.
Just like
Spock says, we don't even talk about it amongst ourselves.
Right. It's kind of like when you're going through puberty, all those hormones, the body changes.
Mm-hmm.
He's an adult and he still wouldn't even tell what's going on with me.
Yeah.
And
like right now in this country, we are still fighting over who should be allowed to teach kids about their bodies, development, sex, or whatever. And it's a fight against growth and progress by a bunch of people who are uncomfortable themselves talking about their own sexuality. Anybody die in this episode?
No, just Spock's boner. That's about the only thing that died. And it died, quick. Interesting episode.
Yeah.
And great way to start out the season.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And I love the spoiler alert remake in Strange New Worlds when they revisit this story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Love it. Well, let's take a moment to thank our patrons.
Let's get right to business.
Fine, I'm authorized to pay an equitable price. Federation has invested a great deal of money in our training. They're about due for a small return.
Listen, we pay off percentages. We're entitled to a little service for our money, huh?
Is this the way your citizens do business? Their right of petition?
They pay their percentages and the boss takes care of them.
Is there anything else?
Thank you, patrons.
Thank you, patrons. There are a lot of great ways to help support the show here. And one of the free ways to do that is to leave us a review wherever you listen to Humanist Trek. One of the best ways to support us, though, is to give us some of your Gold Press Latinum by becoming a patron of the show. Patrons get early access to every episode. There's various merch, and you're giving us the ability to go set up and table at conventions and meet listeners. If you really want extra credit on this course at the Academy, be like our friend Sarah and do both. Sarah is our newest founding admiral.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. And left us this great review. Sarah writes, so first off, I have to say that I love y'all's podcast. So entertaining. I love the fact that you really don't have to have watched the episodes in order to follow. I like that. That's good.
That's cool.
You don't
That's
even have
what
to
I
watch
want.
it to play along. That's great. Yeah. I'm re-listening to your podcast again. God bless you. And I'm currently on episode 17 when y'all were going over where everything they thought came to life.
Mm-hmm.
It
it was Shore Leave.
Yes, Shore Leave. It made me think of the movie Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. There's a scene where they go to rescue Trillian, and every time they say they have an idea, something pops out of the ground and smacks him in the face.
I remember that. Yeah.
That's what I kept envisioning the whole time y'all were going on about this episode, and it had me in stitches. Makes me wonder if this influenced Douglas Adams when he wrote it.
Oh, could be.
Keep it up, ladies. Y'all are doing a great job. Thanks,
Sarah. You're the best.
That was so great. Thank you.
It's not you, Sarah. It's another Sarah.
It's other Sarah. Yeah. And I'm not even going to give her crap for not having an H. So be like Admiral Sarah. Head on over to patreon.com/humanisttrek and pledge as little as $3 a month and enjoy all the bonus material, gifts, and the joy of knowing you're the only thing right now keeping my wife from selling all my Star Trek stuff to pay the mortgage and making me go out and get a real job again. So truly, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, patrons.
I assume you're loitering around here to learn what efficiency rating I plan to give your cadets.
Trainees, to the briefing room. Is that all you gotta say?
What about my performance?
Aren't you dead?
I don't believe this was a fair test of my command abilities. There was no way to win.
There's no correct resolution. It's a test of character.
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
I am understandably curious.
May I ask you a question?
Who's been holding up the damn elevator?
All right, so Becca rejoins us now for the answer to last week's Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge. Last week you asked us,
what measures did the filming crew take to assist Celia Lovesky with her role?
And I said they had to glue her fingers together because she couldn't do the Vulcan salute.
And I don't remember what I said. Did I agree or did I?
I don't remember.
I don't think, because I didn't know.
We'll have to go back to the replay.
Yep.
Well, you're correct, Sarah.
Yay!
She was unable to make the Vulcan salute her by herself, so the filming crew taped her fingers together in the appropriate groups and placed her hand flat on the armrest of her chair.
So she could just lift it up.
So she could just lift her hand. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I can't do it with my left hand that well, but with the right one, easy.
Yeah, I can't. I used to be able to do it with both, but then I broke that finger.
Oh, no.
It won't. Yeah.
I mean, I can do it. It just takes a little bit longer to get the left one.
I would need to tape that.
Next week, we're going to be reviewing Who Mourns for Adonais, Season 2, Episode 2. The Enterprise is held captive by the Greek god Apollo. I do remember some bits about this. I remember they're on planet foam rocks, and there's like Roman columns and shit all around. There's like Roman structures. And I remember there being something like a electrical bolt, like a zap of lightning that is that an Apollo thing or it's some kind of
Zeus,
energy thing.
I think it's Zeus or
that
something.
I had that Kirk or whatever was reacting to. I don't know. He's like using their power against him. It's very familiar, and I know I haven't seen it recently, but I don't know what it was in.
I think I've seen all of them at some point in passing, like whether I was flipping through channels, I probably didn't see the whole thing, so I saw like a portion of it, and when I see it, I'll be like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
But I can't, for the life of me, conjure up anything when you say the name of the episode, because I literally never paid attention to any episodes.
Okay, what's our question then for Who Mourns for Adonais?
What was William Shatner so insecure about during the filming of this episode?
I have no idea. Well, so I'm assuming that they had to go naked or something. You know what I mean? They probably had to take their shirt off or something. Did he have a stomach? I mean...
That's a good guess.
It's season 2. You know, he got money now. He's eating better.
I think that's a good guess. Where you've got a Greek god, so there's shirtless, muscular
probably
men.
I have no idea. Yeah. Body, image, something.
Okay.
Height. Maybe it's package. I don't know.
Well, just to split the difference, I'm going to guess something like there was a woman in this scene or whatever that he had the hots for, and he was self-conscious of his breath.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he didn't want to get a hard on or something.
That could be too. All right. Well, we've locked in our answers. If you want to play along, head to your nearest social media app. No cheating, no Googling. Share out your answer. Use the hashtag Starfleet Challenge, and we'll sift through some of those and pick out ones that we like. All right, next time on Humanist Trek, Star Trek The Original Series, Season 2, Episode 2, Who Mourns for Adonais?
Live long and prosper.
Kapla!
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcast. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/humanisttrek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.